Hello, I'm Ed Raby, otherwise known as the Rabid Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. You are free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so you're free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You are also free to share these videos with anybody you like. I appreciate any promotion of the channel done by others. Can't do it all myself, so the one beauty of YouTube and the internet is you can promote other things you like to other people that you think would be interested. If you feel people are interested in my channel, share it with them. Today is Friday, so it's actually Thursday, and I'm recording this a day before Friday, but at this point, I want to thank the subscribers. I have 9 of them now. I've gained another 1 or 2, I think, since last week. I appreciate that. The channel is growing very slowly but steadily. It has been for quite some time. For the last 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks of existence. It doesn't seem like that long, but here we are. And so I appreciate all that. Continuing on my quest to 1,000 subscribers. And you have to start somewhere. So we're at 991 to go. On Friday's videos, we have a tendency here to let comments and questions dominate the discussion and any kind of comment I received. I haven't received much of a direct comment this last week in a while. I had a couple internet discussions that kind of sort of hit at religion. What I do want to go back to, though, is a couple of comments that were made in passing that really reflected a concept, an argument known as Pascal's wager. Now, Pascal's wager, basically, if you've heard it in more popular form, it goes something like this. Atheists are dumb because they, if you believe in a God and it turns out that there is a God, you win, okay? But if you don't believe there's a God and it turns out to be a God, you lose, and you get eternal suffering in hell, or you gain eternal reward in heaven. If there is no God, you really don't gain anything as an atheist, and you don't really lose anything as a theist. So it seems to me that the safer bet would be to bet on the existence of God and eternal life. Now, if you take it at face value, that seems like a sound argument, but there's actually a lot of problems with it. Put in more logical forms, it looks like something like this. If there is a God, he is infinitely incomprehensible. Reason can decide nothing about whether or not we can find out anything about God. So you must wager on whether there is a God or there isn't one. You weigh the gain and loss of wagering that God is. Okay, either he is or he isn't. There's an eternal, infinite happiness to gain. There is an eternity of unhappiness and torture waiting you if you don't, to lose. If you gain it all. If you lose nothing. Therefore, wager without hesitation that God is, because that's the safer bet. That's kind of a simplified form of it, a little bit better form of it. I used to hold to this. In fact, I think I probably said it several times in the pulpit. Pascal's wager seems on the surface to be a very simple way of saying, yeah, it's just better to believe that there is a God and that, he's going to reward those that serve him. And so therefore, that's the safer bet. Now, aside from the obvious moral implication, if you have a religion or a faith that doesn't believe in gambling, and now you're basically basing your belief on a gamble, that seems to be a little bit problematic for those of you that don't think gambling is good. But there's a lot of other major problems with Pascal's wager. The most notably is this doesn't really prove one way or another whether God exists. It's basically saying you're making a bet that God exists or not. So it doesn't really help us with the question of whether God exists or not. And because of that, we're still sitting here going, okay, so what? We're basing it on a hunch. We're not really going forward with a clear argument that God even exists in the first place. So we're still kind of, in the dark. Also, when we talk about an infinitely happy life in heaven, now we're bringing in the afterlife. And the afterlife has about as much proof, if not less proof, than the existence of God. It really doesn't give us anything. Nobody has really come back from the afterlife and said this is what it's like. Now, there are some religions that claim that somebody has, but I would say that all those claims can be disproven, including the one to Christians and Jesus Christ coming out of the tomb. I'm very intimately acquainted with the arguments there for the historicity of the resurrection. I now can look at all those arguments for the historicity of resurrection and recognize them for what they are, which is a growing legend. In fact, there's a lot of problems with the story of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection from a historical viewpoint. And there's far more problems than most Christians want to admit, and they usually avoid them. Well, getting back to Pascal's wager, I don't know that afterlife exists. There's no proof of that either. So there's no proof of God. There's no proof of an infinitely happy life. There's no proof of an eternity in hell either. So we don't even know whether the gamble is even a legitimately gamble or whether it's not the figment of somebody's imagination in the first place. So we're sitting here saying, okay, but you should still gamble despite the fact that you don't know all these things, because if they do, then you win. And if you don't, you lose. So it's better to wager. It's better to get in the game and play the game of believing and trusting in a God, because if hell turns out to be real and heaven turns out to be real, then you want to go to heaven and not to hell. You don't want to have this issue of spending eternity in hell. You don't want to lose. A few problems from a theological point of view. Number one, wouldn't an omniscient God know that you're just gambling? Would he not know? I mean, if devotion to this God requires, I don't know, true, genuine faith in Jesus Christ, for instance, wouldn't God know that your faith isn't genuine, but you're just doing it because you want fire insurance against hell? I mean, I used to preach this way as a Christian, that it takes more than just believing in God. Even the Bible says the demons believe and tremble. It doesn't help them. Believing in God doesn't save you by many religions' own admission. So just believing is not enough. You have to be a sincere believer. When you add this idea of Pascal's wager, though, there's no sincerity to it. You're just placing a bet on a roulette wheel, which I'll get to in a moment. But you're placing a bet on a roulette wheel, hoping your number comes up, and that's all you're doing. It isn't about sincerity. You've reduced God to the arbiter of chance, unless you believe that God has certain qualities, in which case those certain qualities are going to see through your BS and your lies and your falsehoods and say, sorry, I don't know you, would be the response that Jesus would say he would give. I don't know you. We don't have a relationship with each other. This is the basis for a relationship with Christ theology. And so therefore, even though you are a Christian and you've gone to church all these times, you don't have any sincerity of faith because you're just placing a bet, hoping that it doesn't come up, black double zero and you end up losing. It's not, sorry, that doesn't seem to work with an omniscient God. The other assumption about this is that I don't lose something if I believe. I think you do lose something with faith. I think one of the biggest things that I lost was the ability to entertain all options for my life. Because what happens is, because there are certain rules to every faith, you focus yourself and narrow yourself down into a narrow area. Any idea of rational inquiry about the truth goes out the window because there's this sacred center of religious truth that you have to cling to. But what if that clinging to that really causes you to lose out on some happiness in life? What if it causes you to waste your time, to waste your talents, waste your money on something that ends up being false. The idea that you don't lose something by following a religion or following after God when it turns out that God doesn't exist and the religion is false is patently false. You do indeed lose something. I can sit here as somebody who's a deconverted Christian who spent 20 years in the pastoral ministry. I wish very much I had those 20 years back because to me they're now an incomprehensible waste of time because I spent a whole bunch of time pursuing a career where I could have been pursuing something that would have been more beneficial to myself, more beneficial to my family, more beneficial to other people around me that I love and care for. I certainly wouldn't have had to deal with all the self righteous, egotistical people that come to church and think that they somehow know better than everybody else because they're hearing from God better than everybody else. I ran into a lot of that in the Pentecostal church, but it still existed in the congregational church I pastored, which was a little bit more laid back. But there was still this moral air of superiority that people had that caused people. I mean, let's talk about how many relationships your religion may have caused you not to get involved with because you don't want to unequally yoke yourself with unbelievers. I'm sorry. If it turns out there is no God and salvation is garbage and the church's mission is garbage, anybody who's contributed to that and believed in that and gone after that has wasted a lot of things and has lost something. You have lost something. Um, Sorry, this notion that if I don't make this wager, if I don't believe in God, suddenly I just may, I lose nothing by believing in God. No, I think you lose some things by believing in God. There is a chip that you put on the table that you lose if God turns out not to be the number that's rolled. Sorry, you've lost something very precious and finite. You have a finite life, you have a finite existence, you have finite number of relationships you can be involved with. Holy ducks, if you end up getting rid of all of that and some of that simply because your faith says it's wrong to do so, or your faith channels you into a box where you're not allowed to do so, I'm sorry, you lose some stuff. You lose relationships, you lose money, you lose time, you waste your abilities that you possess on things that really don't matter. That's a loss. In anybody's economic system or accounting system, that's a loss. It's lost time, it's lost talent, it's lost treasure. You've lost it because you backed something that wasn't real. And the biggest thing I think you lose is intellectual honesty because your religion will not allow you to question your religion. Most religions don't. Sorry, they don't. There's a few that, they make their religion on questioning your faith, but most religions, and particularly the Christianity I came out with, they worked overtime. Don't ever question your faith. Question your faith is evil. You could lose your faith, and that's just a lie from the devil. Whether or not a devil exists, of course, they never bothered to prove either, but there you have it. And all the time and energy that I wasted being a Christian and being a pastor, I wish I could have back. I'm sitting here in my early 50s. I'm 50 years old. I'm going to be 51 in another month. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I've wasted, 80% of that being a Christian and about 40% of that being a pastor. I wish I could have that back, because I don't know how much time I got left. You lose. You definitely lose something if the wager turns out that there is no God. If the coin is flipped and the coin lands, there is no God, you lose a lot. You have a finite life and only finite things to enjoy. You should be out there enjoying them and building them and leaving something better for the world. That's what you should be doing. This, of course, brings up the other thing. The logic applies to other all gods and beliefs as well. This is not a simple four-corner proposition where if you believe in God and God exists, you win. If God doesn't exist, you lose nothing. And then the counter to that, if you're an atheist and God exists, you lose everything. But if God doesn't exist, you lose nothing. This is a roulette wheel with literally thousands of spaces on it that you're being asked to place one coin, one bet on. and you're hoping that as that roulette wheel turns, that your belief and your system of understanding the universe is right, and your number comes up. It is a roulette wheel. It's not a coin flip. It's not that kind of wager, because what if the Islamic people are right? What if the Jewish people are right? What if the Mormons are right? What if the Church of Christ, what if the Jehovah Witnesses are right? What if the Hindus, the Zoroastrians, the Shintos, the Buddhists, what if they're right? This is not a simple four corners roll a dice to see if God exists A and if God doesn't exist B. This is, if God exists, which one are we talking about? And if the spiritual side of life exists, what are we talking about? This is a big, huge roulette wheel with a whole bunch of spaces on the front of it that could come up right. And it is the height of absolute arrogance. It is the height of hubris to think that you are absolutely laying your coin on the true faith. And it's going, and not only are you believing that, you're believing as that roulette wheel spins that it's going to land on your number. This is not a wager of a simple coin flip. This is a wager of a roulette wheel. And I'm going to tell you sometime, look up the odds of a roulette wheel. It'll make you cringe. Okay, the fact that people still gamble on the thing amazes me. But it's a long shot that pays off big. And to be honest, how do you know that your space is the one that's going to come up? You don't. You have no idea. So this is not Pascal's wager of a coin flip whether God exists or not, and whether you're going to gain heaven or lose or not lose hell or whatever, or lose nothing. It is a question of, so you believe in something spiritual or godlike. What if it's the wrong one? What if you made the wrong wager on the wrong space? You still lose. You'll still lose everything. There are more chances then to lose than there are chances to win in that wager. In fact, it probably would make the most ardent gambler blush when you consider all the possibilities of what could be out there if imaginary characters known as gods exist. So what has an atheist chosen to do? And the assumption of Pascal's wager is that the atheist is somehow on the other side of the coin flip. I'm going to tell you where atheists have placed themselves. They got up from the table of the roulette wheel and decided to take their coin elsewhere and place it on a surer bet, their own life and living it to the fullest. They have decided that the game is rigged, that the religious game is rigged, that the belief in gods is rigged, and you know what? It's all nonsense and it's all garbage, and it's a fat chance that you're going to get anything good. The safer bet is to walk away from the table with your coin in your pocket. And that's what atheists usually do. That's what most atheists, that's what atheists like me have done. I think that any space that's called up is a false one. And so I refuse to play the game. I refuse to get on that table and play the game. I don't play Pascal's wager. It's a lousy game. It's a roulette wheel with thousands of possibilities. And I'm going to wager my entire life's existence on one of them coming up? No, thank you. Excuse me why I get up from the table and refuse to play, grab my coin and put it in my pocket and choose to spend it in the real world that I can verify exists, not on some imagined hope. Excuse me if I take my morality and all the things that I want to do and try to do something good in this world with it, instead of place it on a bet, on a roulette wheel, hoping that I gain something eternal for myself as some sort of selfish entity that thinks that number one, that I deserve to go beyond this existence, and number two, that somehow I'm so important that I should go beyond this existence. Talk about pride and hubris. There is nothing more prideful and nothing more hubris than the person who claims that they are betting on a sure thing. And that's exactly what the theist is doing if they're trusting in Pascal's wager. I want to thank you once again for stopping by the channel. That'll be it for this installment of week 5. It was just a something that 2 comments had kind of hinted at, but I'd never really addressed. And so it kind of fell to me today to kind of lay out Pascal's wager and why I think it's a stupid idea. It's a nice try, I guess, but I've heard this one, and there's just too many assumptions on it. I just choose an atheist to say, sorry, it seems to me that the wheel is rigged. It's never going to land on a number. And I'd rather take my coin and go spend it on something that I know is real and where I can understand is real. Something that I can verify. And heaven, hell, God, none of that is verifiable. None of the religions are verifiable. None of them. But I can go out here and look at the real world and say, this is verifiable. Let me spend my time, my talent, my energy here. And I just want to say, if any of you are out there struggling with your faith, allow me to tell you this. Keep struggling through it. But if you're going to be honest with yourself, I think you're going to end up in the atheist camp. I think that's honest intellectual integrity to start at ground zero and say, I don't believe in God. It's your job to prove to me that there is a God, that there is a heaven and hell, that faith is what is necessary. That's burden of proof is on you, not me. To me, the default position is atheism. Everything else is somebody trying to get you to place a bet. And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep my coin in my pocket and not place that bet. Thank you. Welcome to the channel again. Comments have an influence of determining the content of Friday's video. Like today, it was just 2 comments that were kind of in passing that didn't really address Pascal's wager, but assumed it. I'm going to add this. You can also direct a question at any time if you're looking to understand something. There might, I don't mind teaching people new concepts and things. If you don't understand something, be sure to ask. I don't have a problem with that. I did a video on challenge to Christians, but my challenge to Christians is there, dig a little bit deeper and know what you believe yourself before you come to me. But if you're not a Christian, you're more than welcome to ask any kind of question that you would like. If there's something you don't understand about certain Christian belief systems, I'll be glad to answer that. And I'll answer any question you like, involving religion, theology, politics, and the Bible. Those are my expertise, so you're more than welcome to ask me, and I'll try to get some sort of answer to you. And they may even become the basis of an actual video. Videos are uploaded Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I don't tolerate name calling in the comments. If you want to demonstrate somebody's an idiot, that's fine. Just don't call them an idiot. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit your notification bell the way you desire. And hopefully someday I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, I hope you have a great day, and goodbye.